Hello, everyone. And this is my research on the famous Ukrainian Ironbelly dragons from Harry Potter. My name is Morgan Ortiz, and I'm from the doctoral candidate in Psych 815, School of Behavioral Sciences, Liberty University. And this presentation was prepared for Psych 815. As you can see, we have two pictures of the Ukrainian Ironbelly dragon. I don't know if you remember, but this is the same dragon that was most popular in the Harry Potter movies. It is commonly known that the Ukrainian iron bellied dragons are ferocious, scary, and expels a breath of fire when angry or frustrated. See figure 1. Question is there a way where something or someone can make them happy? Can listening to soft music impact their temper, not needing to expel fire from their breath? It is not recommended to upset them or make them angry, as they will burn everything in sight, as you can see in figure 2. Most scientists might say nothing will calm a dragon down or alleviate the expel of their breath of fire. For this reason, a new study must be conducted to demonstrate that it can be done. All it takes is love and compassion and some good music. I would like to investigate to see if there's a relationship between listening to music such as lo-fi beats and jazz and temper. To investigate this theory, one must conduct this research study called a correlational design to investigate if there is a relationship between music and temper. First, we must think about our research question and our hypothesis. For this case, the research question is there a relationship between the two types of music, A, lo-fi beats, and B, jazz, and temper in dragons? The hypothesis states that the hypothesis for the study states that there will be a relationship between lo-fi beats and jazz music and the dragon's temper. Lo-fi beats and jazz music might calm the dragon, not allowing to expel the fire of breath and burn everything in sight. Now we have two types of hypothesis. We have a null and an alternative. The null hypothesis, HO, states, and no, not the water, not hydrogen, HO for null hypothesis states, there will not be a statistically significant relationship between the two types of music, lo-fi beats and jazz, and temper and dragons based on the two types of music. The alternative hypothesis, HA, states that there will be a statistically significant relationship between the two types of music, lo-fi beats and jazz, and temper and dragons based on the two types of music. Here are what you call the components or the variables to a study. One, you have your sample. The sample is who or what you're studying. So in this presentation, the sample is the Ukrainian Ironbelly dragons. The independent variable is music, the lo-fi beats and the jazz. Then we have the dependent variable, which is also called the outcome variable, and the independent variable is considered the predictor variable. And the dependent variable is the temper, which is the anger of the dragon. So the type of study to be conducted would be a Pearson's or correlation analysis. Why? Because it's a correlation. We want to see if there's a relationship between the independent and dependent variable, or the predictor and the outcome variable. Then we have the linear regression, and we also have a scatter plot graph. Now, what is a correlation design, you might ask, right? Because you don't know what it is. Okay, a correlation design is a type of study that tests continuous variables or independent variables that are related. In a correlational design, the hypothesis testing process is used to determine whether the relationship found is significantly different or significantly related from what would be expected by chance alone, cited by Adams and McGuire 2023. One example of a correlational design is a Pearson's R correlation. Now you're wondering, what is a Pearson's-R correlation? A Pearson's-R correlation is an analysis that can determine how linearly related two or more continuous variables are. Testing the strength of a linear relationship between two or more continuous variables is done using this design, cited by Robinson 2024. In statistics, Pearson's-R correlation describes the direction, whether positive or negative, and the strength on a two-tailed test between negative 1.0 and positive 1.0 of a related relationship between intervals or ratios, cited by Adams and McGuire 2023. Now let's talk about our sample size. In the real world, one can recruit samples of participants by means of sending emails, visiting schools or universities, placing ads, mailing postcards or brochure, or etc. When selecting participants for samples, one must be careful not to be biased. One cannot discriminate against race, religion, sexuality, disability, and so on. Researchers must be neutral, cannot voice any opinions, cannot eliminate anyone because of their own beliefs, and must provide informed consent and must explain what the study entails. All this information can be found in the APA Ethical Principles and Psychologists and Code of Conduct. For this example, none of the above applies as it is a dragon. It's an animal that basically cannot speak. To find a dragon, one must go to the mountains or the caves and hope they will be happy to see you for the first time. Now I'm going to introduce what we call the measures and instruments. There are different kinds of measures and instruments that can be used to measure anger and music, or independent variables and dependent variables. These measures and instruments are called surveys, scales, questionnaires, etc., just to measure anger and music. To measure for anger, one would be using a scale where it asks questions and the selection of answers can range anywhere from 0 to 5, where 0 equals no anger at all and 5 equals always angry. One scale that can be used is the 5-point Likert scale. Likert scales were developed by Francis Likert in 1932 as a method to measure attitudes like temper or anger. They are ordinal scales of 5 or 7 points used by respondents to rate how much they agree or disagree with particular statements, cited by Sullivan and Artino 2013. In this case, since it is a dragon, the researcher would be the respondent measuring their reaction. To measure for music, one must play both types of music at different times to see the dragon's reaction. Remember to look out for body language. If not, you'll become a barbecue meal for the dragon. Just kidding. One records the findings and places them into a scale, which can range anywhere from 0 to 5, where 0 is no reaction and 5 is love the music. One scale that can be used is the music receptivity scale. The music receptivity scale measures how internalized an individual is to a given piece of music at the point of listening, cited by George Lavarasu, 2021. Listeners can internalize music to the extent that they become deeply caught up in it, resonating with it deeply, cited by George Lavarasu, 2021. In this case, since it is a dragon, the researcher again would be the respondent measuring their reaction. Scores will be inputted scores will be input to SPSS software, and one will run the statistical analysis of Pearson's-R correlation and a linear regression with a scatter plot graph. The results will demonstrate if there is a relationship between where the p-value is less than 0.05, or there is no relationship where the p-value is greater than 0.05. What that means, if the p-value is less than 0.05, you reject the null hypothesis. But if the result shows greater than 0.05, then you either accept the null hypothesis or you fail to reject the null hypothesis. Since the Ukrainian iron-bellied dragon is not real, there's no way to conduct a study, but you can just imagine. Now in this slide, we have our procedures. Again, we have the independent variable, which is at a scale, and then we also have the temper, which is angry, also a scale, and is also known as the dependent variable. The first week, the lo-fi beats music will be played twice a day to see their reaction. And then the second week, jazz music will be played twice a day as well. Everything will be recorded on the questionnaire and input into SPSS software version 29. To measure temper, the Likert scale questionnaire will be taken at the end of the study, and all scores will be input to SPSS software version 29. Now, in this slide, you will see an example of what a Pearson's R correlation looks like. You have your correlations, and then on the left-hand side for, this is just for verbal ability, you will see where it says willingness to cheat. You can see what each section defines. So the top one saying, because it's negative 0.658, it says, looking at the Pearson's R table from SPSS, you'll find that the correlation between verbal ability and willingness to cheat for your sample is significant. And then if you look at the SIG two-tailed test, you will see that it's below or less than 0.05. So that also says that it is significant. And then the N just means the sample size. So we have 20, in this sample, you have 20 people. But the end note says that the correlation information is repeated so that you need only read the first 3 lines of the table. So the willingness to cheat against the verbal ability is on the left-hand side. And if you see, it's the same exact as the willingness to cheat that's on the right-hand side. All of these figures were retrieved from the textbook Research Methods, Statistics, and Applications, 3rd edition by Catherine A. Adams and Ava K. McGuire, 2023. Now we have here a scatter plot graph. The scatter plot graph shows the data points created by the participants' scores on 2 measures. Each point represents an X and Y score. So the Y measure is also known as the Y-axis, and then the X measure is also known as the X-axis. And if you see here, we have a perfect correlation because the dots are perfectly aligned. So that means that there's a perfect correlation, which means that that these tests is significant. This figure, figure 5, was retrieved also from the same textbook, Research Methods, Statistics, and Applications, 3rd edition by Catherine A. Adams and Ava K. McGuire, 2023. In this slide, we have a linear regression. A linear regression describes a correlation by finding a line that fits the data. The linear regression method is appropriate when we have 2 intervals or ratios and a significant Pearson's R correlation. So if you see here, it's the same example from the previous slide. The only difference is that you can see the line, the linear line. So because it runs directly through the data points, you can tell that this is a significant test. Now in this slide, it shows you the results of a linear regression. As you see, you have the R, okay? You see the model summary, you see an ANOVA. And basically it explains to you what each of these boxes mean. So the R, if you remember the previous slide in the correlations, you saw the negative 0.658, and that is basically the R, which means that is the coefficient of determination. Then we have, it's the Pearson's R. Then we have the R square. The R square is the coefficient of determination. And the standard error of the estimate, which is average error in predicting willingness to cheat using verbal ability. So here you see the adjusted R-square, and then you also see the standard error of the estimate. Now here in this ANOVA table, you will see the sig value that you saw on the previous, on the correlation that it said 0.002 for both willingness to cheat and also verbal ability. So as you can see, on the regression model, it is also significant. Okay, so the ANOVA table repeats the significance level and reminds us of the predictor, the verbal ability, and the predicted willingness to cheat variables. The predictor is the verbal ability, which is the independent variable. And then the dependent variable is the willingness to cheat. This figure was also retrieved from the textbook Research Methods, Statistics, and Applications, 3rd edition by Catherine A. Adams and Ava K. McGuire, 2023. Now in this model, here we have the coefficient. And the coefficient, basically, it shows you the 95% confidence interval. The confidence interval for the y-intercept and the slope are also provided. And here you see on the lower bound, you see that. Then you see that negative 6.58 on the beta. This also tells you that from the correlation that it's significant. Then here you see the on the sig column, you see 0.002 for the verbal ability, which also shows that it is significant. And of course, we fail to reject we reject the hypothesis, the null hypothesis. The coefficients table provides in column B the y-intercept equals 52.939 and the slope equals negative 0.318 for the regression equation, which basically means that it's between positive and negative. So here we have our conclusion. And here is a recap of a research design. Basically, the first 3 questions you want to ask yourself: what do you want to investigate? The second question you ask yourself: why do you want to investigate the study? So if you see something that you're interested in and you're like, wait a minute, and you found a gap, you're like, okay, let me rerun this study and find out where the gap is coming from and find a way to fill in those gaps. Then the third question you ask yourself: how will you conduct the study? And of course, you have to look at all of your components. You have to look at your factors and see what it is, the type of study you want to conduct, whether it's going to be experimental design, whether it's going to be a correlational design, a quasi-experiment. It all depends what it is, what type of information you're looking for, whether you're looking for a difference or you're looking for a relationship. Gather your study components like the research design, your samples, and your statistical analysis. Then once you have all of this, then you can go ahead, run the study, and report your findings. Okay, and now this concludes our presentation. So here is our references page where you can actually look for the information yourself, and you can probably conduct a study on your own using these examples. Okay, and I hope you enjoyed the presentation, and thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.